Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Voice of College Football. Following an SEC-ACC matchup, for those of you that keep count, and obviously that's much fewer of us than it was years ago when we used to take pride in this, the conference matchups in the bowl games. But still, I like to play along. I like to keep track. I like to think it means something. But we appreciate you all being here. And we will drop the link in the chat here in just a second to get revved up and take your calls as we head into a Christmas weekend, out of the Christmas weekend, right into bowl week and the college football playoffs. 1 week from tomorrow night, Christmas Eve, New Year's Eve. That's the way that works. Yeah, 1 week apart. So we are 8 nights from TCU in Michigan, where I have not heard a soul out there. No one has predicted TCU to win that football game. If you yourself believe TCU is going to win, or you can find me a site, a commentator, analyst, somebody who is predicting TCU to win the game, and maybe I'll be the first, because I actually am leaning toward it being a good game. So hang on. As soon as I said leaning, I know some of you may have thought, wow, Rogers is going to pick TCU to win this game. Not necessarily pick them to win the game, but it appears as though I'm a little more pro TCU than a lot of you. And of course, we've got a strong Michigan contingent here. I do think the TCU wide receiver core and their offensive weapons could pose a threat to Michigan that they really have not faced, other than that team in Columbus, Ohio, that didn't show up on that particular Saturday, or were squashed by the Wolverines, of course. I'm giving credit to Michigan, not stating it in such a way, not to give credit to the Maize and Blue, just basically stating, yes, TCU is no Ohio State overall, but in terms of offensive personnel, they could possibly match the Buckeyes. Maybe not one Marvin Harrison Jr., that guy's really unique. There are few that can match him. But we do appreciate everybody being here. And of course, use that Amazon link. You've probably finished your Christmas shopping. Just because of a few dynamics in my family, my Christmas shopping has been sized down considerably. So that's fine. That's good. That's fine. But still a few things to go get. And I will do that tomorrow. Also, I'm guessing that about 90% of the people I'm speaking to right now are freezing. You're freezing. You've been freezing. And certainly if you step outside, it wouldn't take long before you to run back inside. I had some things I could have taken care of today that I pushed off to tomorrow, even though tomorrow it's probably going to be just as bad here as it was today. I still pushed them back. And I was the wimp and did not, I did not take part in weathering the 50-degree or the 50 mile an hour per winds. The 50 mile per hour winds. Yes, I did not take part in those. Just a few notes before we get started and take our first call. So I want to make a few things known to you if you're not aware, and certainly I will rely on all of you to be news, the gatekeepers of the news in the college football world. So if there's anything that I've missed, certainly let me know. But of course, we've got one quarterback, DJ Uiagalelei, no longer with Clemson. Of course, he had entered the transfer portal right after the ACC championship game, going to Oregon State. So they need upgraded quarterback play. DJ needs a landing spot. He stays in the Power 5. I'm not going to assume that he's going to win the job over one Ben Gulbranson, who played well within the Oregon State offense. He did what the Oregon State offense required him to be. Did a great job in that way. DJ, physically, athletically, is a superior player. I don't know if he's a better quarterback. I really don't know that. He was a better quarterback this year than he was last year. Well, he was phenomenal for 2 games against Notre Dame and Boston College when he filled in for Trevor Lawrence 2 years ago. And I made the mistake of expecting that for a full season. Many others did as well. And then we got an awful DJ version in 2021. He was better this year, but not that much better. Not better to the point that a team vying for a conference championship should be looking to add DJ Uiagalelei as a starting quarterback. It'll be an interesting quarterback battle between those two and possibly others at Oregon State. So there's one storyline that's out there. We just got through National Signing Day. Hopefully you've checked out all of our work here at the Voice of College Football. We must have had 25 different beat writers on to talk about National Signing Day for their particular teams. Posted today, Minnesota and Michigan State here at the Voice of College Football. But again, look at all the team channels. Most of it's posted there looking at National Signing Day. And we can't talk National Signing Day without talking about the transfer portal as a supplement to that, i.e. DJ going to Oregon State and all the other moves that are being made across college football. I do want to pay some recognition to the game that was just played in that Sam Hartman has thrown for 1 million touchdowns at Wake Forest. He owns the ACC record for touchdown passes with 110. Wake Forest had lost the 3 previous bowl games that he had started. Let's see, that would have been... No, they didn't. I apologize. In 2020, that's right, Wake Forest had a matchup against Rutgers. Rutgers had to fill in for Texas A&M. We had a nice little matchup with Wake and Texas A&M, but that didn't come to be since Texas A&M had COVID issues, or they didn't have their quarterback and didn't want to play in the game. And Rutgers filled in, and Wake got an easy win there. Sam Hartman and Wake lost last year in the bowl game. They also lost his initial appearance against Michigan State in Mark D'Antonio's final game at the Pinstripe Bowl. So he finishes with a win. Everything I know about Sam Hartman, and I'm not saying I've done a deep dive on Sam Hartman as a person. I'm a football guy that just cares about these guys on that level. Not that I don't care about their well-being, but I don't rarely find interest otherwise. But Sam Hartman seems like a really great guy. Obviously had the medical issues in August that led to a delayed start to his season. And there was speculation that he wouldn't play any in 2022. Of course, he got into it rather quickly and got past the medical issues that he had, thank goodness, and had another great Sam Hartman season. They finished 8-5 with a bowl win over Missouri, which drops the SEC to 0-2. Florida loses, Missouri loses. Okay. All right. And then again, to even dive into the many transfers we've seen over the past few days, there are a ton of them and they're meaningful. I post as many videos as I can possibly get to on the team channels with profiles of the players once they land. I am not crazy enough to try to track every transfer portal entry or track the crazy reports that that Devin Leary has visited Kentucky, Auburn, and somewhere else. No. Once they land somewhere, great. It's kind of like the NFL draft, and it's also like recruiting. Leave me out of it. Let me know where they land. Okay, now we can talk about it because we know Devin Leary, Kentucky, that means something. Interesting story, interesting fit. Okay, how does Kentucky project going forward with Devin Leary at quarterback? Okay, that interests me. That's a good storyline. Let's start here at the Voice of College Football with caller number 1. I should have kept some kind of count at some point. I should have known way back when we started call-in shows to keep track of this, because I believe Mr. DeReal MVP has taken the lead way back in kicking off the show. How's it going tonight?
It's going good, Mark. I love all the Kentucky talk that you have brought on. And I kind of want to ask you about it. Devin Leary, yep. Kentucky's newest quarterback.
Yeah.
Highly sought after, according to 24/7 Sports, the transfer rankings, all of it. I don't watch much NC State football. I'm going to be honest with you. I watch them against Clemson, a little bit against Florida State. So what should I, as a Kentucky fan, expect of Devin Leary?
What you should expect is less mobility and running than what you saw with Will Levis. He's not as willing of a runner, but he's still capable. He will still leave the pocket and do what he needs to do. We're not talking about you acquiring CJ Stroud. So he's a willing runner. He's capable. He will move. He will threaten the defense that way, but not in the same capacity as Will Levis, first and foremost. You know, I'm not going to pretend to say that I've got a scouting report on Devin Leary in regards to, like, I've looked at every pass that he's ever thrown, and I've come to this conclusion about his level of arm strength. I don't think there's any question that his arm is considerable, strong enough. It's not a laser. It's not at that caliber. I've never heard anyone analyze his arm strength, or nor have I, in watching NC State play, ever thought, okay, this guy has amazing arm talent. He takes care of the football when he's surrounded by playmakers, which he was in 2021. NC State was well stocked at that point. They lost some key pieces on that offense from a playmaking standpoint, and the offensive line. He had a top 5 to 10 NFL draft selection at left tackle in 21 leave, and his stats suffered. He's not going to carry your offense to the degree that Will Levis, but he is a good find for you. That's a good replacement. You could have done much worse than Devin Leary.
Well, one of the things I've heard about, or the two major concerns I've heard about generally, and I'd like to ask you your opinions on it, Mark. Devin Leary plays in the ACC, and now he's transitioning to the SEC.
Yep.
And not only is he transitioning to the SEC, but next year Kentucky has to face Alabama, Georgia, Tennessee.
Okay.
That's pretty significant competition. Do you think maybe his stats or his evaluation was boosted up because of the competition he played?
Well, he played in the better of the two divisions, and I think that's meaningful. I do think there's a significant gap between the Atlantic and the Coastal. So he faced a Florida State defense for about half the game. That was the game he got injured this year. And that, along with the Clemson defense, would be the two best defenses that he played this year. You may be surprised to know that Texas Tech actually has a decent defense. They usually don't, but they do this year. It's decent. Yeah. Georgia, Alabama. So that's another level. That is, yes.
It's a tough draw, Mark. It's a tough draw.
Struggling against those teams.
Yeah, it's a big ask. And the second major concern I heard about in tandem with that was injuries. Devin Leary has been injured a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And with Kentucky's offensive line struggles, and with Will Levis taking the amount of hits he's taken this year, I'm worried that he won't be available for every game.
Well, I believe that Devin Leary, I might be wrong, NC State fans, ACC fans, jump in here and correct me if I'm wrong in the chat. I do believe that prior to the 21 season, that Devin Leary, I cannot remember the other quarterback involved. He was a Florida State commit at one point, and he played, and it was one of these deals where there was a quarterback battle the entire offseason, and guys got hurt, and they were back and forth, and somebody outplayed somebody. Can't remember the other player's name, but anyway, so he didn't necessarily have the job the entire season, but he did get hurt. And then the 21 season, he was great. 35 touchdowns, 5 picks, probably the best quarterback in the league, along with Sam Hartman, was the first team All-ACC selection. And then he gets hurt this year. Is that getting hurt a lot? I don't know that he's got a track record of getting hurt all the time, but he's been injured a few times.
Yeah, I think, now this is projecting way too far out, but maybe this more off-season talk. I think Kentucky could finish 7-5 next year and be a better overall team.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's kind of the path we're headed for, which is unfortunate. But Mark, there was football games played today.
Yes.
And how will the SEC ever recover, Mark? I mean, they're 0-2. So I guess, what does this mean? We got to push them down a rank? as not the best conference. People are asking me to bring up the fact the SEC is 0-2. So is it just over for them?
I am going to consider it. I'm not going to consider taking them down a rank unless this really continues and spirals into like a 2-9 postseason. But these games count. Sure, they count.
Oh, yeah. They all count.
Florida got killed
by a top 15 team.
Yeah, not a fair matchup, not a like-seeded matchup. So let's play the pros and the cons, because we've got two very end of the spectrum viewpoints on this. We have the Florida's awful, the SEC's awful, this is proof, they're overrated, Oregon State killed them. And then we have on the other end, and that I heard a comment somewhere, I don't know where this would have been, and that the Oregon State win over Florida negates the Florida win over Utah. I don't know that we're negating wins and losses here, but I know that when the teams were at full strength, that Florida beat Utah. It's a valid win. They won the game. Was it close? It was extremely close. Did I come away from that game believing that Florida was a better team than Utah? No. But I also didn't come away from that game. Now, it's easy in hindsight after they lost 6 more games or 7 more games. But at that moment, on that night, did I know that Utah was going to be a better team throughout the rest of the year than Florida? I kind of figured in their conference they were, but I didn't know who the better team was. I watched almost that entire game, every play, and thought, these are pretty evenly matched teams here. Yeah, Cam Rising blew a play at the goal line that should have never been made, and they should have completed. But even if they win that game, even if Utah wins that game, it's still an extremely close game. Okay, so we know Florida, at least on one night, played the Pac-12 champion and beat them at home, which is a nice little advantage to have, certainly. And then 3 months later, they got killed by Oregon State without, I think maybe a lot of people overplayed how much Florida was missing in that game. They were missing 4 or 5 substantial players, and of course, Anthony Richardson, and the backup quarterback did not play well. He also didn't have a lot of opportunities. The pass rush was pretty vicious. So I think there's a balance there. There's a balance there to say credit to Oregon State. I'm glad, actually, although it's not good for argument's sake. I wish there would have been a close game for argument's sake. But for the Oregon State folks, I'm glad that for our buddy Connor and Clint and others that are in the Oregon State crowd, I'm glad that they won the game decidedly, so they don't have to hear this. But we didn't have Anthony Richardson and we didn't have 4 or 5 players, so you really didn't win the game. Now tonight, DeReal, we had Missouri losing to Wake Forest. Now there is a like-seeded matchup. That's a decent matchup to look at. I didn't go really deep into opt-outs for that game, except Dominic Lovett, one of the best wide receivers in the SEC, had already transferred, put himself in the transfer portal. He actually just committed and signed at Georgia. Look out. Georgia picks up a really good receiver, Ray Thomas, from Mississippi State in the last couple of days, and also Dominic Lovett, who finished 4th in the SEC in pass receiving from Mizzou. Jeez. So that's a significant loss, but it's a wide receiver loss. I'm not going to flip the score because of that game. So Wake beats Mizzou, and now we got the SEC at 0-2. It's going to be factored in. If it's
it should be factored in, but I don't think this shrinks the gap, obviously, by definition, and has to.
Yeah.
But is this going to be the thing that just breaks the camel's back? No, probably not.
No.
I mean, it's going to be really hard for the SEC not to be the best win. South Carolina's beaten Clemson, Florida's beaten Utah, and just so many other good results this year out of conference. Like, the SEC has so much of a gap that it's going to take, like, Kansas State winning, Ohio State winning. It's going to have to be overwhelming, in my opinion, for the SEC not to be the best conference. And when you beat a lot of out-of-conference opponents, that should be the case.
the conference that has the opportunity, and maybe not top to bottom, but is, of course, the Big Ten. If the Big Ten goes out there and takes care of business and wins 2 enormous games, and one of its 2 teams wins a national championship, I don't know that we can sit here and say it's the best conference, but when the top of the conference is the best, that means a lot.
Oh, yeah. I mean, right now, what are they, 4th or 5th? Probably 4th or 3rd, actually.
Yeah, I've got them 4th, but by a hair. I've got 2, 3, and 4 like that close.
Right. So I'm assuming you've got the ACC
last. Yes.
Yeah. So, but this helps the ACC out a lot because they're out of conference.
The ACC is 2-0 in bowl play.
Right. Because the ACC had a lot of bad out of conference wins. Like Miami was just a. Yeah, exactly. I think that sums up their season, Mark, in a nutshell. Now, let me ask you this. Was the West Virginia nation happy that Dana Holgorsen won his bowl game on a last-second field goal or a last-second touchdown?
They don't like Dana Holgorsen. Now, our buddy Joey, we just did a West Virginia show, and Joey told me that there is a fairly large segment of the West Virginia fan base that does like Dana Holgorsen. Well, Joey knows so much better than I do, but based on the feedback I hear from the West Virginia guys on here, none of them like Dana Holgorsen.
Yeah, that's interesting, Mark.
I'm sorry to interrupt. He was their last coach, and he outperformed their current coach. He both outperformed their current coach and is now outperforming their current coach. So
that is fascinating. Well, Mark, I think that's all I got for you. We got a lot of interesting bowl games next week. I wish they would have sprinkled out the bowl season a bit more because there's been some non-inspiring matchups this week, as I'll call it. But I'll let somebody else on the line. I see Tim in the back room, so fight on to him.
Fight on. I even threw one in there, so maybe DeReal doesn't have to say that next time. I gave him an extra one. All right, let's get to it. We've got Faith on the line. Can't wait to hear from Faith. Faith, how you doing tonight?
Hi. I'm from California, but I'm an SECer because of bloodline.
Okay.
I can't stand the Pac-12.
Okay. What's wrong with the Pac-12?
They don't play up to or down to the level of their opponent. They think they're going to coast all the way. I'm happy there's no Pac-12 team. Thank you, Utah, for eliminating the Pac-12. And not only that, I have family members who played. Dad played at San Jose State. My uncle was the AD at Southern Cal and Syracuse. So I kind of come with a bloodline.
Okay. So you're an SEC fan just of the entire conference. You're a big SEC fan. Okay. So they do play games against each other for much of the season. Who do you root for then?
On certain occasions, like the LSU-Georgia game, it's mom versus dad. So I'm like, I love you both, but I'm Switzerland. And if it comes down to Alabama, LSU, which is my godmother and my father, I love ya. I'm not calling that one. I'm going to let you two handle this. I usually pick the team that has the better mascot, though.
The better mascot?
Yeah.
Should I take a guess as to who has the best mascot in the SEC? It's got to be Uga, right? When you get a live dog, the live mascots are the best.
Uga and Bully.
Yeah, Bully.
Yeah.
That's right.
So, yeah, my dad played at San Jose State where he met my mom, who was a journalism student. And then I had a few cousins who played. No one in my immediate family plays, so it gets passed down to me. LBC Trojan, I see you. I know that's a pun on the George Michael song, okay?
Yes. So if we all can put on our leather jackets, we can sing along, strum our guitar, and shake our rear end.
Oh, God. So,
all right, Faith. What else do you have for us? Anything else?
I also root for like the lower tier teams, like University of North Texas, the Mean Green, Louisiana, Lafayette. Yeah. It's Lafayette, not Lafayette. Just so you know. Because it's Cajun.
I'm probably too old at this point in my life to correct bad habits. So you get a lot of rooting interests here. That would be confusing to me. I root for one team. I don't root for the other 130.
No.
Yeah.
It's easy because if you do it by bloodline, it's hard. But if you do it by bloodline conference, it's easy.
Okay.
Let me give you an example.
Yes. One example.
I have a godmother who went to Bama.
Yes.
And she also went to Southern Cal. I don't root for either of those teams, but I do root for the SEC because that's how I was brought up as a child.
Okay. Faith, enjoy the bowl season. Your conference needs to recover from 0-2.
We will. We still got the natty.
Absolutely. Have a good night. We appreciate you calling.
LBC Trojan, I see you.
All right. Let's keep it moving here at the Voice of College Football. We got our buddy Will here. Will, what's
Merry
going
Christmas,
on?
Mark.
Merry Christmas. I typically, every other year, I've had decorations in the Christmas tree behind me, but not this year. But it reminds me because I see your Christmas tree there.
Mm-hmm.
You have a
Mark,
ornament back there?
Favorite ornament?
Any team ornaments? Any
team ornaments? Well, we got a Skins one here.
Oh, you're a Redskins fan. Or
yeah, it's just from my area. I'm cursed with that, but hopefully the ownership can change and the team can have better success.
Yeah, so you've grown up in a bad era of Washington football, but yes, the past glory is pretty significant. Yeah, I grew up during a great time for Washington football. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Mark, what do you think about DJ? I'm excited for DJ. A new opportunity. I mean, even though he played against my team twice, I still have I still like DJ, and I want him to do well.
I don't like this transfer portal, but it does make for interesting projections forward. Okay, Devin Leary, Kentucky. Okay, what is this going to look like? How well is he going to do? DJ goes out to Oregon State, and on and on and on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I really only started following the Pac-12. Like, I was a casual Pac-12 because I mostly followed the biggest games. But with Michael Penix, Caleb Williams, DJ, Dante Moore, Cam Rising, it's a fun little time to watch Pac-12 with all these great quarterbacks.
Well, it was a great quarterback year for the Pac-12, and I did not anticipate it being the best quarterback league this season, but it was. It was. Mm-hmm. I would argue that. I don't think it's that close. Mm-hmm. I think the ACC was the best coming into this season. I believe the ACC was the best last season, but a few things happened there to knock the ACC down. And then the other leagues are pretty thin, especially the Big Ten and the Big 12 at the position.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I also got my guy Drew Pine going to Arizona State.
Oh, I didn't see that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right. Kenny Dillingham. Emory Jones left Arizona State. Okay.
Yeah. Hopefully this could show if Kenny can really develop a quarterback, because if he can get Drew to stop looking at his first read, because a lot of the times he just stood in the pocket and just stared at Michael Mayer waiting for him to get open, and then he would get sacked. So if he gets rid of that, there's a brighter future ahead for Drew Pine. I still don't think he has a chance to be an NFL quarterback, but maybe XFL or USFL.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it doesn't strike me as an NFL quarterback.
Yeah, definitely. So, can I tell you a rumor, a little transfer portal rumor involving my Irish, Mark? I
Heck
know you
yeah.
don't like. I've been hearing a lot that Sam Hartman will be going to South Bend.
Ooh.
I really like the fit, Mark. I really like the fit.
Oh man, you gotta like that.
Mm-hmm.
Sam Hartman to Notre Dame. That
With
would
that
be
offense,
sweet.
with the offensive line,
Yeah.
most of the guys coming back, I really think. And what really excites me about this, Mark, is that the wide receivers improved a lot under new wide receiver coach Chancey
Mhm.
Stuckey. So the receivers will be better. The quarterback will be better. I'm really excited to see this offense go to work.
Yeah, we keep hearing every offseason that Notre Dame's recruited well a wide receiver. They have better speed and athleticism at wide receiver, but either in this year being the obvious case, who would know because they can't be utilized with Ian Book there, sure to a certain extent, but still, Sam Hartman is he's just a class act, a pro. Will be interesting to watch in that offense. So of course you lose a few studs, Isaiah Foskey and others on defense, Michael Mayer. But it seems to be on the upswing there at Notre Dame. This seems to be cycling into a strong season here.
Yes, especially with Tobias Merriweather at receiver coming into his second year. He was extremely excited. We were extremely excited to see him, but Drew Pine could never complete. He only completed one pass to him the whole season, and it was a deep touchdown, the only touchdown that Irish scored against Stanford. So, and it was a great catch. So we get to see more of those with Sam Hartman. It excites me a lot.
Okay. Do you hear that, DeReal? Notre Dame may win a New Year's Six bowl game next year.
Yeah.
Of which I have to admit, with the gun to my head, I said I was taking the under on Notre Dame winning one of those in the next 5 years.
Yeah. Also, Jadarian Price was hurt at running back. He was actually supposed to be the best running backs, but our running back room still did quite well with Logan Diggs, Audric Estime, and Chris Tyree. Yeah. All right. Well, I hope you and your family have a very Merry Christmas, Mark. And
that will.
Excited to see some more bowl games coming up soon. It'll be fun.
Absolutely. Will, thanks for stopping by. Notre Dame.
Be sure to check out Young Guns for more interviews as well.
Yes. Get on over to the Young Guns college football channel. I think they go live more than I do.
Yeah. All right. Thanks so much, Mark.
All right, Will. Have a good night. Yeah, Notre Dame. We will jump on some type of top 25, way too early top 25 as soon as the season ends. And yeah, we will have to take the Irish seriously. All right, folks, welcome into the Voice of College Football. Let's see who we've got next. Got our guy, Dr. C, checking in tonight.
Hey, how's it going, Mark?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Fantastic. Thanks for asking.
The one and only USC and Arkansas fan.
Yeah, I might be the only one. It may be. I'd be hard pressed to find. If I ever find another Arkansas USC person, man, that would be amazing. I doubt there's any, but
yes,
you never know.
We did have an earlier caller who pretty much roots for the entire SEC and Group of Five.
Good for them. That's awesome. I just had my random questions that I typically have for you. When regards to the recruiting that we had the other day, two things that really, for me, I noticed was Utah getting a top 25 class. I thought that was really awesome because they're typically recruiting in the lower 30s, more to the 40s, and developing players. And I'm really interested to see how they develop this class, being ranked so high for them. They were right behind, according to 247, right behind Arkansas and right above Texas Tech. So a fantastic recruiting class for them.
Yeah, I got to say that they kind of flew by me. We don't have any Utah contributors to bring on, so I didn't have a discussion about Utah. And you're right, I do have a pretty good recollection of where teams rank from year to year, and this was a substantial climb for them to number 22 with 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 4-stars.
Yeah, that's amazing, especially for them. I don't remember them having such a great class. I mean, the job that Kyle Whittingham has done has been sensational. I said, I was thinking, man, I could really see if Napier doesn't work in Florida, I can see Kyle Whittingham going over there or to an SEC team with his physical brand of football. But I didn't realize that he's 63 years old.
Yeah, he's in great shape. He looks like he's in great shape. Like
he is.
Like he could climb a mountain tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, I remember when he was. I remember when he was the coach when they beat Alabama. I mean, the guy's always looked like a football player, but he looks 10 years younger than he really is. Realistically, I think because of his age, I don't see him leaving Utah.
Yeah, I don't know what his preferences are for what type of surroundings he wants at a school, geographically, and all those things. I don't know where his background lies in regards to prior to coaching, where he's from, if that means anything to him. But imagine everything that we just stated with Utah not facing USC and UCLA.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, it's gonna be really interesting. I mean, it's an exciting team. It's always been a very physical brand of football that I think the Pac-12 isn't known for. And they've brought that. They've always had it. From they're kind of like an SEC team. They were part of the Mountain West, I believe, before, and they brought that into the Pac-12. Much needed, and you've seen the results. They're hard to beat, so kudos to them. And then lastly, the one disappointment I would say, and I'm a big fan of his because he is a former SC coach and coordinator, was Ole Miss at 36.
Yeah. That's surprising because Lane Kiffin's had a reputation, and especially now that he's in the SEC, that he can draw athletes that they want to play for him, both from the standpoint of just his personality, his name brand, the recognition that comes with that, but also, of course, his ability to prepare offensive players specifically for the NFL. And they actually focused on a defensive class last year and were highly successful bringing in a strong defensive class, which I gave him a lot of credit for, making sure that he was prioritizing what was needed to even out the roster and be a bigger factor. And they had a nice class last year. Yeah, I didn't really notice. We were supposed to have an Ole Miss person on, but did not. That at 36, yeah, that's they should be. I see 27. Okay, you're right. 36 is when they start throwing around names like a composite. Well, the overall rank's 27. The composite is they should just put the class rank 36. Throw it all together with the strong transfer class, and they're at 27. But yeah, the 36th ranked recruiting class out of high school.
Yeah, and that's a shocker because, as you were saying, Kiffin has been known as a recruiting monster. I mean, he seems to relate well with the players. He understands the marketing of recruiting. He's been a very strong, he really dislikes the NIL, and he's made it very clear, and he's called it out. I don't know if that's affected recruiting or the fact that there was a lot of You know, people were thinking I thought he was gone. I thought he was Auburn's coach, there. And, he stayed. I don't know if that affected it, but I see, he's got 7 4-stars, and 5 of those are defensive. So
let's also understand something here, Dr. C.
Mm-hmm.
They only signed 12 players.
Yeah.
If you look at their average player ranking, they are one spot right behind USC at 15 to 16.
Yeah, and that's also kind of surprising because typically if you're looking at the classes, they're recruiting about 20, 22 players, and to only get 12, I'm guessing they're going to pick up more people later on, and I don't know if they're going to substitute more with the portal. But
it's Lane Kiffin. They will be supplementing more in the portal, I would guess, than most teams. But yeah, it's only 12 and 5 transfers so far. So they've got, I would guess, a lot of room. And there is still, I wouldn't be able to explain it right this second because I haven't looked into it enough to be able to explain it. But we're still in this dispensation of unlimited roster space, and that's not even accurate, but more comfortable roster space from the whole COVID situation.
Yeah. So, but that was still, like I said, a shocking thing. And then lastly, I'll let you go just quickly. So Arkansas did get their defensive coordinator, Travis Williamson, out of UCF.
Okay.
Which I was happy with. Very aggressive defensive coordinator. I was really unhappy with Barry Odom, who would just rush 3 guys and have the rest of the 8 go back and defend. So I'm happy about that. But the rumor was that we might have gotten Brian Williams out of Maryland, who is a monster recruiter out of Florida. He's getting Florida kids up to Maryland. That's how much of a recruiter he is, and it's a bummer we didn't get him. But I think Arkansas's defense is going to be good next year. I think it's going to make a big improvement. So watch out for the Hogs next year.
All right. Well, I'm taking note of your Florida to Maryland narrative here. So everybody takes kids from Florida. I just want to see what the quality of the player is. So his best player out of the state of Florida?
Well, he got a 5-star last year, if I'm not mistaken.
So this year, I'll look at next year here in a second. But this year, his best player out of the state of Florida, Dylan Wade, who's listed as an athlete. We'd have to delve a little bit deeper. Usually that's defensive back / wide receiver, so I don't know which. Although he's 6'4", 240. He's probably tight end / edge rusher or outside linebacker. Anyway, he's only the 135th rated player in the state of Florida. So they didn't do too well this year in Florida. They have 3 players, and they're all ranked 135th, 153, and 170 in the state. That's usually where, who lives there? Nebraska does better than that. So I'm trying to come up with a school. Indiana, that's like Indiana territory. But let's see the player you're looking for right here from last season's recruiting class. I should know who this is. So they got. Are you sure it was last year? I don't see any Florida players last year.
That's what they're saying. They, I think I heard on the Hog program they said this guy recruited a 5-star out of Florida.
Well, I don't know where they're looking. Maybe we need to go a year before that. They don't. Their highest rated Florida player the year before in 2022 is.
It might have. Well, no,
3-star, 122nd player in the state. Okay, we'll go back one more year, and there's your 5-star. Yes, Terrence Lewis. Yes, T2. they call him. Terrence Lewis, yes. He almost went to Miami. Is actually from Miami Central. Yeah, there's your. But the last 2 recruiting classes, his Florida choices have not been. Now, they could turn out to be really good players, but on the surface, based on the rankings, again, we're talking Indiana, Illinois. Those are the players they're getting. Maybe even FAU and FIU are getting those players that are 150th in the state of Florida.
Okay, so I'm not feeling as bad about not getting him.
So, Dr. C, you bring your information from other podcasts here, and we'll delve into it, and we'll find the truth.
Fantastic. Sounds like a plan, Mark. Thanks for taking my call, as always.
All right, Dr. C, have a good one.
You as well. Good night.
Appreciate everybody being here at the Voice of College Football. Sports Talk 101's checked in. Mark, love your channel and keep the hard work. I don't want to keep the hard work. So I appreciate the comment. Of course. Thank you so much. That's a very nice view. I could, you can keep the hard work. We're trying to get rid of the hard work. But, and I cannot believe I can utter the final statement there. All right. Next up here at the Voice of College Football, we got our guy Hunter on the line. Hunter, how you doing? Hello, Hunter. I understand that the wait is sometimes lengthy, and so you may want to go, I don't know, scramble some eggs or take a nap or, flip around late night cable TV, if anyone still does that. But Hunter, once, twice, 3, are you here? Hunter, hello. All right. We'll leave Hunter in the backstage and we'll move on to Cole's on the line.
What's up?
Not too much. How you doing?
Good. So I was just gonna, well, obviously the National Signing Day just got over. I was wondering what you thought of how Matt Rule did at Nebraska in the 3 weeks that he's been on the job with the commits that he's gotten so far.
Well, if you don't scout the players yourselves, if you don't have friends who are high-level scouts in the know, all those things, what are the first thing we all do? We look at the rankings.
Yeah.
How important are the rankings? They're very important. Are they everything? No, they're not. Not even close. For a couple different reasons. The scouts make mistakes. The services sometimes skew the rankings to their own end to benefit their business. I don't know that they do that much, but they have business interests involved. So if a player commits 6 months early and there's absolutely no drama surrounding that player, they're like, I'm committed to Alabama. I'm done. There's not a whole lot of incentive for them to be ranked high. And again, I don't think that they're cooking the books drastically or anything, but I think they're breaking some ties in that direction. Mm-hmm. So, our buddy Greg Peterson, of course, is going to be pro-Nebraska. Mm-hmm. I don't know that he tries to be, but he is. I don't think there's any question. That's fine. He's a Nebraska guy, Nebraska fan. If you look at I was a bit surprised, I got to say, Cole, when I looked at the class. So Greg was on Wednesday night, mm-hmm. and we did about 5 minutes. And when I was looking at the class, I thought, looking at the individual players didn't look like it was going to add up to a number 31 class, I think it is.
32. Overall 32, composite rank 28, transfer 36.
Yeah. Of course. So 3 4-stars. Okay.
Mm-hmm. He only lost one previous that was committed to the previous staff.
Okay, so that's where you can help me out here. So that's a great sign. Mm-hmm. That's tremendous. Where he doesn't have any relationship with any of them. There's no way, coaching in the NFL for the last few years, he comes in and he hangs on to everybody but one player. That's a great sign.
The only guys that decommitted were the Mickey Joseph guys, like Amarian Miller. I think he just committed to Colorado today. And O'Marion Miller, and then Barry Jackson flipped to Cincinnati. So
Yeah, I saw that.
We got a really big transfer today. I don't think they've updated his composite yet, but Ben Scott, the center from Arizona State, he was like the 17th best rated center according to PFF last year. He came because of the connection he had with Donovan Raiola and Dominic Raiola. Obviously, Dominic Raiola is the father of Dylan Raiola, number one recruit in 2024, number one quarterback. Dominic and Donovan had Ben Scott in for the Nebraska-Purdue basketball game, which was interesting. That Dominic is actually helping recruit with his brother. But yeah, Ben Scott is a plug-and-play, really good center, and he was leaning up like they were future Kesson for Auburn 100%, but all of a sudden yesterday his mom posted that he's coming here, and now it's official.
Yeah, that's great.
I think he's like the number one guy. And obviously we got Jeff Sims too.
Yep.
And in Rule's press conference, he said like 5 words about Casey Thompson when asked, and about 50 when asked about Jeff Sims. So I feel like Casey doesn't feel like there's a competition, but I feel like Matt Rule leans Jeff Sims, which is going to be an interesting play out of events. I don't know. How would you compare Casey Thompson and Jeff Sims? Obviously, Jeff Sims is a way better runner.
Yeah.
I don't know how to. I haven't watched any of him besides his highlights. So I don't know if you've watched much Georgia Tech at all or not really.
Well, nobody watches Georgia Tech, but I did watch his first game, I remember, against Florida State. I did watch that entire game. And what was impressive, even though he didn't have a huge hand in like leading a great comeback because he threw for 300 yards, he was on the field at 13-0 down to Florida State on the road, first game he ever started, and did lead a comeback. I think he's a really good quarterback. I think that this is what I do like about the portal, in addition to everything else, is that it brings, a quarterback from Texas for a season and a half, and then Nebraska versus a Georgia Tech quarterback. And I do think it's an interesting comparison because I do think there's a lot to compare here. I don't think it's a slam dunk in Casey Thompson's direction. For as much as I'm impressed with Casey Thompson, and I want to say that he has more polish and probably more arm talent, but not significantly.
Mm-hmm.
So the style of offense, what they want to go forward with, minus Mark Whipple and with Satterfield, could really play into what they're looking for. That's in watching Casey Thompson play a lot of football, and Jeff Sims, I see him play maybe 3 times a year. So he's started, I think, 24 games there. So, I've seen him play 5, 6, 7 times. That I think it's an intriguing battle. And again, it may come back down to what they want to emphasize. Maybe on a scale of 1 to 10, the 8 thrower, grade thrower, versus the 7, or the 7 because we want him to escape and threaten defenses.
Yeah. Okay, this will be my last question so other people can get on. But the Dylan Raiola hype is real around here. Everybody thinks he's in. How would Dylan Raiola change the trajectory of the Nebraska program, in your opinion? It doesn't have to be necessarily wins, but does it speed up the rebuilding process for Rule significantly? How would you react if Dylan Raiola committed to Nebraska?
So if Dylan Raiola did not have Nebraska tie-ins, it would be even more significant, but it's still hugely significant. Obviously, he's a talent, and he's playing the most important position, and he's playing the most identifiable position and the most recognizable one that receives the most attention. So all of that works in the favor of the perception of your program. And then on top of that, what is going to be huge is obviously not just his success as it pertains to wins and losses on the field while he's there, but people, opposing coaches, rival coaches could use that as Nebraska doesn't get those kind of recruits. They did here. He failed. There's a reason.
Yeah.
Look at that. Or if he succeeds, yeah, this could be a game changer.
Okay, this will be my last one, then I'll get out of here. I'm not asking you for a record prediction for next year for Matt Rule in Nebraska, but what are sort of your expectations? What do you I don't know how to really ask this question. Like, how do you kind of feel out how year one will go with Matt Rule at the helm?
Well, my expectations is that college football coaches at that level are good enough to the point where I can't sit here every Saturday afternoon and watch games and pick out obvious. Everybody's making mistakes, of course, but those are the players on the field, like obvious gaffes in coaching. I could sit here and watch Scott Frost, much like I could watch Les Miles in a different way, and watch game after game and say, why'd you do that? That doesn't make any sense. That doesn't make any sense. You're done with that. That's not going to happen anymore. And certain things, like when they went to Oklahoma, well, they had a string of games where the offensive line and false starts was just like
unreal.
Again, every team's going to have those issues in loud stadiums at certain times, but it's like, this is not getting corrected. So why is it not getting corrected? And that's something that, teams can't be at 1st and 15 or 1st and 20 constantly. That's just those kind of things. And the whole special teams, the neglect of special teams and all the gap. It's one thing to neglect special teams and then to get like 3 or 4 games into your first run of, okay, we had a gaffe and then a gaffe. Let's do something about it.
It took him 3 years to actually hire a special teams coordinator.
Bingo. Versus guys like Urban Meyer, who are just obsessed with special teams anyway, because they're important. So, yeah, great coaches are super detailed, and Scott Frost wasn't. Matt Rule, I'm not going to sell him as Nick Saban, but your competency at head coach went through the roof.
All right. Have a good one. Thank you.
Sure, Cole. Thank you. Appreciate you being here. All right, folks. Here at the Voice of College Football, let's go to a few super chats. So Joey Foster, look at Joey. Joey bailed me out during our West Virginia show. So I come on here, and my level of West Virginia football knowledge right now is just a smidge below maximum expert. No, actually, it's quite a ways from maximum expert. And Joey came on, and we pulled together a show. So we appreciate Joey being here and for our West Virginia show. Joey is going to match up to the next $20 in super stickers. Joey, you're phenomenal. Thank you for that. We do have a few other super chats. There we go. LBC's here. Oh, this should be good. This should be good. But before I read it, of course, LBC joins Tony and Tim for USC Postgame, which they are playing, of course, on January 2nd. And so join Tim, Tony, and Rick for USC Postgame. These guys are phenomenal covering the Pac-12 and covering USC. And we will have another Pac-12 chat show coming up soon. LBC says, don't worry, SEC. You got to have faith. You'll win a bowl game this season. Happy holidays, Mark. Maybe, maybe not. Maybe not. Who's next up for the SEC? South Carolina, Notre Dame. That's not going to be easy. Okay, let's forget about the playoffs for a second. Arkansas, Kansas should win that game, but it's no slam dunk. Mississippi State's got a game against Illinois. I think that's a really interesting matchup. Mississippi State, Illinois. Ole Miss has Texas Tech. They're a decided favorite there. LSU taking on Purdue, and basically Purdue's team is checked out. unless Drew Brees wants to play, no quarterback. And that's big for Purdue. That's bigger than most teams. Like if you're missing Aiden O'Connell and you're Purdue, that's like missing a quarterback and like 2 other offensive players. That's how reliant they are on Aiden O'Connell, plus one of the best tight ends in the game, plus one of the best wide receivers who caught 100 passes this year, plus their best player on defense. So Purdue is not in a good place against LSU. And Drew Brees actually volunteered to show up to watch that. That's how much he loves Purdue football and loves his university. I love that. That's great. Drew Brees showing up to coach his alma mater. That's phenomenal. And work with those guys for like 3 weeks. That's tremendous. He's got other things to do, or maybe he doesn't have other things to do. All right. Mark, thank you so much for the super chat. We appreciate that. Mark with a C. Thank you so much for your super sticker. Todd says, happy holidays to all college football fans. So, Oregon State fans and Florida fans. Yes. SEC fans, Pac-12 fans. We might be the only place that has pitted the Pac-12 against the SEC as much as we have. I've had nothing to do with that. But Todd, thank you so much for the super sticker, super chat. All right. We are going next to Hunter. Hunter, are you with us now? Is the nap over? Hunter,
hey, Mark.
There he is.
Hey, how you doing, Mark?
I'm doing just fine. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Hey, so let me ask you about, first of all, Florida State a little bit. I know this signing period didn't kind of turn out the way that us Florida State fans kind of wanted. I think we missed on a couple guys that we should have probably got. So, what is your outlook for Florida State coming in the next season?
Trajectory up. The current team they have, they lose less than the vast majority of teams. The one thing I will say about the Florida State run here in the second half of the season, and it has been impressive, I don't know if it was accomplished against the best of competition after they lost 3 consecutive games mid-season against the 3 teams that most of us expected them to struggle against, Clemson, Wake, NC State, and then they pulled it together against the likes of Syracuse, Georgia Tech, Florida, etc. Who did they beat that was any good in that stretch? Boston College. Yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately,
they're a good team, and again, they should be really. Mike Norvell has saved his job. He's turned this thing around. So, from a career standpoint, this has been monumental for him. Who knows? He might have been back to coaching. His next job might have been Western Kentucky, UTEP.
Yeah, unfortunately, our schedule at the end of the year is kind of weak. I mean, we got kind of picked up that week or half of the ACC there. But kind of moving on to something else. With Charles Kelly being named the DC now at Colorado.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you think Nick Saban should go to look for a good recruiter and a DB coach?
That's a great question. I'm never on and ready to field these coaching questions for these position coaches. Man, I would have to survey and think about it. And yeah, nobody stands out to me. You don't necessarily, especially in this day and age, need to wait for somebody to have, to be unemployed. You just go take whoever you want. So, the Illinois defensive coordinator went somewhere. I can't remember. He had a great year.
I just think we just need a good recruiter. I mean, I'm not bashing in any way him as Charles Kelly as a coach,
Somebody
But
needed to coach those Alabama defensive backs this year. That is probably the worst secondary play I've seen at Alabama during Nick Saban's run.
yeah, we had a transfer in there, and we had a couple of young guys on that cornerback position. We had Kyrie Jackson, who now is transferred elsewhere, but yeah, I don't know. I don't think that's Charles Kelly's fault because we've been with Alabama for a minute, and he's the year before we were pretty solid. I mean, we're pretty good. So I don't think that's necessarily anything to do with him personally.
Okay.
And you know how Nick Saban's so hands on with those defensive backs. So and I like where we're headed on as far as defensive backs. I mean, to get Desmond Ricks late in this signing class is monumental to our signing class because we only had Jill Hurley, who was from Anniston, Alabama, who's now is going to play for us, and now to have Desmond Ricks as the incoming freshman 5-star guy, that's really going to help alongside Caleb Downs, another 5-star. So I like where we're headed in that position, but I never know where to look as far as these assistant coaches jobs, just like you. So I would just have to think that Nick Saban knows exactly which direction he wants to go as far as that goes.
Yeah, he's been through the process a few times. Yes, I would like to be able to line up a list for you, but there's just way too much going on in college football to keep up with in terms of me trying to scour the nation. I need to keep like running lists, like Google Docs on every open position, coaching position in America, not just head coaching, like position coaches, and just gather up names or something. We'll have a staff of 20 here pretty soon, and we'll do things like that.
Uncle Rico, don't hate the player, hate the game. That's just that's what happens when you have a coach that out recruits all these younger coaches. Nick Saban just loves to recruit, and when you have a guy like Nick Saban who's a relentless recruiter, these are the kind of signing classes you're going to have.
It would be interesting to know, and we'll never know, because at some point, I'll liken it to a great performer. The great performer, whoever you think is a great performer, well, they wowed people with their great talent and performing ability as unknowns. So they were so amazing that people watched them and they were unknown, said this person's great. But as they then became famous and there's this anticipation, now you could look at it the other way and say there's an anticipation that you got to deliver when you walk on the stage and people are expecting the best, but there's a certain awe there to say, they could then decline and people are still just in awe of them, and still their performance could decline and they're still in awe of that particular performer. Much like a Nick Saban. I don't know how much he's recruiting at this point in his career and how much his what is it? He's got to hold up two hands with rings is recruiting for him. I'm not saying it's still not hard work. He still doesn't have to be on top of his game and he can just flash national championship rings and guys come running from out of the woods. He still has to work hard, but obviously a lot of his reputation, name brand, championships, all that he's worked toward is paying off for him now.
No, I agree. I agree with what you're saying. But I do think what makes a big difference is with kids is when he does these in-home visits. When Nick, I don't care who you are. I mean, kids can say what they want to, but when Nick Saban walks into your living room, if that has to change the game a little bit, because you're looking at the guy who is the best coach in probably these kids' lifetime.
Sure,
for sure. And in my opinion, and I know I'm an Alabama fan, but I know that other people have this opinion who are not Alabama fans, that he's probably the greatest of all time. as far as a college football coach.
Mm-hmm.
And I know from people that I know that are around that program, they say that he is one of these guys who is not just hitting these in-home visits very well. He does a good job of maintaining relationships with these kids, during the recruitment process and talking to these kids. So I think it is a little bit of both. I think of the legacy that he has, plus just his relationship building with these kids. I think that's why he's such a good recruiter. At the end of the day, I'm not, and I know that was a little bit of a smart comment a minute ago, but Nick Saban, he's just one of these. He just comes from. If you know the story of Nick Saban, you would understand why he's such a hard worker when it comes to this area. Like he talk about his upbringing and so. Anyway, Mark, Merry Christmas and let's everybody. This is a great season. This is getting into the bowl season and everything else, but let's not forget the reason for the season. And Merry Christmas to everybody out there.
Hunter, thank you so much for the good word. I am fully behind you on that one. And Merry Christmas, and enjoy the holidays from here on out. And I don't know if I'll get a chance to talk to you beforehand. So yes, again, Merry Christmas to you.
You too, Mark. Bye-bye.
All right. Glixer, Squid, good to see you. Thank you so much for the super sticker. Appreciate your contribution. That's very nice of you. Joey, super sticker. Joey, what are you doing? I know you're setting a good example for everyone, but you do way too much around this place. So we appreciate you being here, Joey. And again, Gixer Squid, thanks for being here as well. It is time to talk to one Dan Rutherford. Dan, appreciate you being here. What's going on tonight?
Hey, Mark, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Wonderful. Using the Sun's Xbox.
Oh, now you're getting a little muffled.
Hello, can you hear
Whatever
me?
you can do to clear that up. I'm not so concerned that I could hear you, because I can make out what you're saying, but it's more about everybody else.
How about now? Can you hear me now?
It's about the same. So just continue.
Hey, Mark. Just wanted to say I'm excited about your new show with Steve Jace coming up. I don't know what you're going to name it other than 9 minutes of Steve and 1 minute of Mark.
Well, that's funny that you say that, because from every once in a while, I will check out the comments on Michigan podcasts when we do our 10-minute war. And it seems like there's quite a few comments of people, I have resigned myself to the fact that, we are who we are. I'm not going to blab and rant and rail and go nuts and be somebody that I'm not. When I do that, that's authentic. If Mark's mad, if he's annoyed, if he's got an axe to grind, this is completely authentic, because it happens 5 times a year. Steve is one of those guys that you could say, talk about that doorknob for 20 minutes, and he would be able to talk about the door. I could talk about it for 20 seconds and I'd be done. And I'd say, I've said everything that's meaningful. I can't say anything else. Told you how it's shaped, what you use it for, what the color of it is, how it's functional. There it is. But Steve's got a gift of gab. I don't. So I do, to combat that, I have an idea of how I'm going to format the show. That wasn't really a good example of the way the show's going to go, I don't think. Although, what are we going to do? We're going to debate college football or talk about it. I don't know how much we're going to debate. It depends on if we disagree on things. But I appreciate that. But I do have a strategy to get my word in first, and then we'll go to Steve.
That sounds like the best plan. Okay, one other thing for you. University of Georgia. I have a
Yep.
beef with University of Georgia and their football team.
Man, you were
Besides us beating
fading
the
off into the
pants off
distance
of
as we go. You got a beef with Georgia and their football team.
them. Besides beating the pants off of us.
Yeah.
Their graduation success rate as a
Okay.
team for their football team.
Yep.
2 years in a row. 54%, 59%.
Okay.
I know we're not in the 1950s, but I'm an old man, and once upon a time, you were student athletes.
Yeah, I wish we could go back to that. So, for example, what is it at Michigan?
It's in the 90s. It hasn't always been in the 90s, but it's in the 90s. So
Okay.
what this says is that for a new football recruit, in 6 years, 96% of them are going to graduate.
Yes.
UGA, 54%.
Wow.
How
So-
are they academically eligible if only half of them are graduating?
What do you expect the composite of the Big Ten to be? What do you think it is?
Mid 70s, low 80s?
Yeah.
And it's the same for the SEC.
Yeah. No, it's a great point. It's a great point because if we would emphasize student over athlete, if we could rewind 50 years, and there was still an NFL 50 years ago, and it was still making $1 zillion, and they were still playing in Super Bowls, and it was still a big deal 50 years ago. I can almost remember that far. I can go about close to 45. But the college experience was, big time college football was big time in 1972. Let's say 78 is the first season I remember. Big time college football was still a big deal. They're on the national networks and they're making a lot of money and everything. But I just got to think that it was more balanced. And I go back to a tremendous talk I heard from Jim Delaney, former Big Ten commissioner. And this was on 3 different occasions where I was fortunate enough to go to a luncheon with Jim Delaney, and not like 4 people to where I could talk to the guy, but there wasn't 1,000 people there, just, 30 people there, not many people there to where you could talk to him a little bit. You could hear from him. And to hear him describe when he was a student athlete at the University of North Carolina as a basketball player. So he went to Final Fours, played in national championship games as a varsity basketball player, big time. This was like 68 to 71 in that range. And to hear him describe what their week looked like and what their days as student athletes, they still ran a lot, practiced a lot, traveled, but it was so structured and it was so emphasized on the academics and being a student. And it was so in balance. And he says, obviously, my kids played sports throughout when they were really young, all the way through high school, both of them. And I could even see at that low level, which is nowhere close to what we're talking about, the constant push that, okay, we're going to practice more, and because they're practicing more, now we're going to have to practice more. And now they're going to add some games. We're going to add some games. And with constant, and that's what I think is happening. The competition for the almighty dollar and to win, of course, has been, I'm sure there's just been a constant, okay, the SEC's practicing a little bit more. Now we got to practice a little bit more, and then they're practicing more, and we're going to raise the limit, and it's just gotten out of hand, and then it's not enforced. There's no way it can be enforced. And things are voluntary. No, they're not voluntary.
What do you think about a development league like the NBA has? So you don't force your kids out of high school to have to go to college. I do feel some regret that some kids that maybe don't want to go to college are forced down that road. If you had that NBA development league type opportunity in the NFL, I'm sure that would turn the world upside down.
Yeah, it's an interesting thought right there. We would lose a lot of great athletes that would play for our universities, but if they are not fully invested in being a student athlete, then what's the point? That was the original point, was we have a university where students go to school. Oh, and they can play athletics. And some of them are really good at it and talented. Oh, okay. So we can have a bar of, you have to make the team. You have to be really good. And then, there are professional leagues that they can aspire to. And then it just went off the rails. Yes. I would love to return to 50 years ago.
All right. I leave these words with you just to give you some ammunition when you're talking to the Georgia Uncle Ricos and the others of the land who are telling you that Michigan is the dollar store version of the University of Georgia. Ask them why they can't graduate their kids.
Yeah, they're the dollar store football version, but not as a total entity. Georgia's then the dollar store to Michigan's place. Yeah.
All right, go get them. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, Dan. Appreciate you being here.
Bye-bye.
Have a good night. Dan had so many good things to say. I hated to see him go on one hand, but at the same time, could not hear him for some reason. All right. I could. Hopefully you guys could. James Knoll, go Dogs and Merry Christmas. James probably didn't love our latest phone call. So, Dan, if he's accurate, and I have no reason to believe that he's not, we could all look it up. Georgia has a 54%, or its last two classes, 54 and 59% graduation rates. Michigan's at 96%. Now, I will say this to Dan, and I almost said it, and then we continued on with something else. I would guess that most Georgia football fans would say, I don't care. Should they care? I don't know. I'm not going to make that judgment. That's up to them. If you're, again, fully invested in what the college experience should be, then you should care. But that's not going to change the result on the field. If Georgia wins a national championship, they don't get a bigger trophy or more accolades if they've got a high graduation rate. Maybe they should. Again, I would love for it to be in that sense, 1970, whatever again. I don't know that we could pinpoint a year or a group of years where it escalated out of control. Obviously, television more than anything has, not immediately. There was television in the early 50s, didn't just cause everything to explode, but that was the origin of it. And everything has emanated from television. Television has been the cause for all of this in a good way or a negative way. It allows everyone to watch the games and make a ton of money. And now, by extension, the internet. But television has been the driving force of all of this. Without television, this is still a small regional sport. Because if you're a Mr. USC fan in Los Angeles, you can read the paper about Notre Dame and Ohio State and Michigan, but you can't watch them play. So television has changed everything. Again, for good, and definitely for good, or we wouldn't be talking about this. We would not be here talking about college football and be so invested. For the negative, possibly, depending on your viewpoint. All right. Oh, man. Can't wait for this conversation. We're going to talk some Oregon State football with the Coach Beavs finishing up a stellar 10-3 season. And you would think that there is no way that they could drop out of the top 15 in America in the final rankings. Connor, how you doing tonight?
Sorry about that. I was making scrambled eggs.
Yeah, well, you got to make your scrambled eggs, while you're waiting. Sure.
Wow, I'm having a hard time pumping the brakes right now. I think we end the season maybe top 10, and we come into the season with. All right, I'll pump them.
Top 10. Wait a minute. You're talking about this current season.
In this current season, in the top 10, yeah. We have to have some teams lose. Not that it really matters, but the Beavers are a team that we still rely on national narrative people to wake up a little bit because we haven't been relevant, really.
No.
Except for in 2001.
So, right?
Rightfully so. Yeah.
Okay.
And we're slowly building it the right way. We like to say built, not bought. I don't know how much that's true anymore. I will say the first two things that came to mind about the DJ situation. I
Yep.
first thought about.
I'm listening. I'm just curious to look at the college
Oh,
football
yeah.
playoff rankings now because
We're 14th.
I'm trying to figure out a way that you're going to finish in the top 10. But anyway, it's not important. But go ahead.
Yeah, I first thought of JT a year ago, and we didn't have enough head of steam. We weren't willing to give him as much money he wanted. But I think this staff is now looking at a guy like DJ, like an experienced guy. They're willing to. All of the NIL money that's coming to Oregon State is going to is kind of going through the coaches, and it's going to the players that have earned it on the field. And I think that's what they're pitching the kids, even when they recruit them still, which I kind of like that model. We may not get as big a names, but Smith's proven that we don't need the big names. And I think DJ, number one, less pressure. Number two, better offensive line. Number three, better scheme, better coaching that fits him. But the main thing is the less pressure. I was talking on the Pigsky Pete channel with the Pater fans. They said it was between the ears and the confidence issue. And, it's all in place for DJ to just come in, doesn't have to play hero ball, kind of like Knicks did at Oregon. Just come in, do your thing. And if you think about the Pac-12 quarterbacks next year, I mean, 5 Heisman candidates minimum: Nix, Penix, Williams. I don't know about Primetime Son, but people like him. I know I'm forgetting people. If Cam comes back, now with DJ up here in Oregon State, with Cam Ward up at Wazoo, with DeLora at Arizona. Now, all these aren't Heisman guys. I'm just listing off all of these quarterbacks.
Mm-hmm.
Dante Moore at UCLA. I mean, 10 out of the 12, it's just the NorCal schools left with no quarterbacks. I mean, even ASU, we'll see what Dilly can do with Pine, but it's still up in the air. NorCal, the schools can bring in some people. It's exciting. The second guy I thought of was Pinnacle Branson. You talked about him. The ceilings are just two different places, which I feel bad about because he definitely has improved. And then the third thing I thought of was Aiden Childs, our freshman 4-star incoming quarterback, ranked 11th, I think, on 247. Now, I don't think this makes much difference to him. I think it's a guy that he can look up to, very similar to DJ. So, the future's bright. This has been the one position that Smith, and Jonathan Smith's a quarterback guy, has not been able to get. And his best one, Jake Luton, he turned into a backup quarterback in the NFL. So, sky's the limit for real with DJ.
Sky's the limit for DJ. I'm right there with everything that you just stated, but your closing statement, I can't. When you say sky's the limit, you mean that he can be the 6th or 7th best quarterback in the Pac-12, and you can go 10-3 again. I'll agree with that.
I think we can compete for the Pac-12. Would you agree with the statement that we were a quarterback away from one loss this year?
Yeah, that's a great point. Even the Utah game, which on the surface was a blowout, was not a blowout.
No, it was more about poorly timed interceptions on our side of the field and then capitalizing. So for all those reasons, and that's why I say I have to pump the brakes, but Beaver Nation is buzzing. I mean, with it's everything's in place, and now you have to think some of these wide receivers in the portal are like, There's one from St. John Bosco that Tim mentioned. Maybe he comes. He was in the portal. I don't know where he plays. I didn't look into it, but you have to think that there will be a trickle down effect because we were going after the big three: Card, McCall, DJ. I've been practicing the whole time in the chat how to pronounce his name. I still can't do it. Can I hear it once?
The rest of us have been practicing for like 2 years plus. You obviously have not cared about Clemson football at all because I had to get that name down within a couple weeks or sound like a moron.
Let's hear it.
Uiagalelei.
Uiagalelei. Okay, it's not as hard as people. It's just intimidating with all those.
Once you know
vowels.
how to say it, then you know how to say it.
Yeah, a lot of vowels. But I think ultimately part of the reason why he chose is his little brother just signed at Oregon.
I didn't necessarily say it right there. I haven't said it for maybe a month.
I think it's you.
Yes, Uiagalelei. That's how you. That's how
I'm
you.
gonna need to practice.
That's how you emphasize the syllables. I gave it like a lele at the end.
Yeah, I don't want to get lazy and do the ukulele thing that people do.
Yeah.
It's easy, but so yeah, with his brother in Eugene, I think we can safely call it the Civil War now. And then, family's important. So, his parents can go see way more of both of their games. And ultimately, he just, he saw the writing on the wall. I think as far as plug and play for a quarterback, we were probably the best available portal option for the best quarterbacks, in my opinion, or at least close to the top. So, I'll hold off on saying sky's the limit. But, if you look at steps, we've taken a step each year. And so there's no reason to think we can't compete for the Pac-12 next year. And if that puts us in the race, it puts us in the race. We have an easy non-con, which might hurt us. I think our hardest team non-con is San Diego State at home in the new Research Stadium. Let's go. Another reason DJ gets to come break in the new stadium. It's exciting. And there's one of the famous restaurants in Corvallis is a Hawaiian spot called Local Boys. And you already know they're going to, I know he's not Hawaiian. I think he's one of the Pacific Islanders, but they're going to capitalize on that.
Sure.
Make an NIL deal, order a number 4, a DJ bowl.
So there's no way Goldbrinson puts up a fight for this job.
No, there's a way. He's gotten better, and the team likes
sure.
Goldbrinson. There's a clip floating around after I want to say Arizona State game. Some of the players gave him their bling. Do you remember the video of Kirk Cousins floating around where he had all the chain? He was like dancing without a shirt on the plane.
Did this happen after the big comeback win?
This year, yeah.
Yeah.
And then so
I didn't see it, but I hear you.
I think it was the same week. Ben, all the guys on the team were, chanting this. He was doing like the same thing. So the guys love him, and he's a tough dude. That one hit where he slid against Florida, and I think it was Trey Dean just laid the boom. He got right up and flexed on him. The guys love to see that. So, and his strides are undoubtable. I hope he doesn't go anywhere, but if it's best for him, he could be a great Mountain West Conference quarterback. And hey, he'll compete. So, or if he sticks around, Smith has never not given anybody the job. Even when Chance Nolan came in and looked like the favorite, made him compete all the way up till. I think this might be the first time he announces a little earlier, but every year he's been here, he announces like the week of game 1. So, I feel bad for Ben, but it's competition, and I don't think he'll shy away from it. And you need more than one quarterback, right? Chance Nolan entered the transfer portal. We don't have anybody else, so
absolutely.
At the very least, 2 good quarterbacks with the potential of DJ to be. I got to go back and watch his highlight tape, but at the time he was number 1 QB, number 10 nationally. He's Oregon State. If we would have signed him out of high school, this would be by far the highest rated recruit. And like I said, the scheme fits him perfectly. Probably do more RPO than we did with Ben, but and some receivers stepped up in the bowl game. Sorry, it's just transfer kid from Penn State who had 4 catches all year, and then against Florida, he kind of went off a little bit. He's taller, South Florida kind of out of high school guy. So the receiver room isn't bare, but I still feel like they'll probably bring in some receivers.
Very cool.
And by the way, sorry I missed the fact that we played phone tag earlier this week, and with the holidays, I was like,
no worries.
But as far as National Signing Day goes, 2 4-stars, and all of the 3s look like the guys that the coaches want. So I don't question it anymore. Smith has earned the trust of the fan base. It's just I'm along for the ride now. It's wild, and I don't think this is to me is the biggest portal move so far. I might be forgetting somebody, but
The biggest portal move. Well, quarterbacks are most important. Devin Leary to Kentucky, but Kentucky's not winning the SEC. Yeah, I'll have to think about that.
Maybe it's
there
on my
are
shirt.
better players in the portal, but in terms of a portal move, yeah,
it's a Mount Rushmore shirt, but there's a buffalo on it, so maybe that reminded me that Shedeur going to Colorado and the whole Prime thing in general.
Oh yeah,
is huge for the Pac-12 and huge for the national landscape, because even if he doesn't compete for a couple of years, he's still stealing a lot of recruits from the top dogs. And that's it's fun to follow. I think the Pac-10 will be fine, which is exciting. Like, this is the first time since the whole realignment started where I'm like, all right, Amazon's going to be bidding more for, than the Big. I think we get more than 30 a school. I know the Big 12 people don't like to hear that, but what's your flagship? Kansas is the only school in West Virginia that is like the state flagship school, and the Pac-12, Pac-10 is, I think, will be fine. Again, I'm not 100% confident, but I am more confident.
Yeah. I agree, and I hope you will be. Yeah. And the whole thing about playing phone tag was that I should have been out in front of the whole Oregon State, win the bowl game, finish with 10 wins and all that. I should have told you like 2 or 3 days in advance. Okay, when Oregon State wins this game, I'd like to have you on. But what happened was they won the game, and I didn't want to so much focus on the game because people, what the deal is. They want to move on. They're already, the game's over. It's over. Let's move on to 23. And I thought, instead of rolling up my sleeves and trying to dig through rosters and stats and figure out who's coming back and trying to produce an Oregon State video, I got a ready-made video right here. Just bring Connor on here and talk some Oregon State football.
Yeah. Well, as far as the game went, like you said, first 10-win season, SEC team, all the things I talked about beforehand came true, except for I thought it was going to be closer. I'm throwing a little shade towards SEC's way for, they like to say they were missing everybody. And thanks for saying that earlier. They really were only missing, as far as potential like impact players, at most a handful of guys. And I know that's a lot, but we also were missing our tight end one, our top receiver before the game was hurt.
Yes.
Our top cornerback entered the NFL draft. So like it goes both ways, and it was just the better team. And the field goal at the end was like, I wish we would have broken their streak, but it's like more humiliating the fact that he had to kick the field goal. I understand why he did it. He doesn't want to have that on his resume, but it was just like, there's 40 seconds left. Send out the field goal unit it was hilarious because Pac-12 teams don't make SEC teams do that very often. I mean, the last big win was Tennessee, Oregon 10 years ago. So, SEC 0-2 so far. Pac-12's 1-1.
Yeah.
I won't trigger Darrell to get back on here because I respect the SEC. And to hear from a lot of the SEC fan bases that watching Oregon State in that game, we looked more like what they thought of an SEC team as versus a traditional, glitz and glam, throw it over the top kind of way because, we pound the ball and our undersized front came through. We got some pressure on them. Mm-hmm. But that's the biggest need. Speaking of National Signing Day, is the front four, and we have the highest rated defensive lineman that of any Pac-12 school is getting in Kelsey Howard. He's a 4-star out of Las Vegas. Okay. He's plug and play. He's 260 edge guy, I think, but maybe we'll move him in the inside, put a little more weight on him. We have the number 1 JUCO edge guy, Nico Taylor, I believe, out of a JUCO in Kansas. And then, last year we did a great job on the D-line and we redshirted the guys. So we have some guys that, will fill into those roles. So as far as CFP goes, I'll pump the brakes there, but there's no reason why we can't win the Pac-12 next year.
You have definitely secured a spot in the Voice of College Football dark horse for the college football playoff video this year.
Do you remember before the season, we were in your dark. Now we're only in one dark.
Absolutely. Been upgraded.
We're upgrading. Moving on up.
least it proved to be a legitimate video from the Oregon State standpoint, that Oregon State certainly pulled through as a player.
Yeah, no, you called it at the beginning of the year. A handful of people did. Serge called the 10-win season. Chris, you know, LBC Rick certainly saw it coming. Tim certainly saw it coming. I don't know as much Tony, but you know, he's happy for us. It's the Pacific Northwest in general is just playing strong football right now. You know, I don't like the Duckies, but their signing day was, you know, talk about built not bought versus the other way around. Dan Lanning, you know, definitely made the splashes that he needed to make. And so did Primetime. So did USC. We're kind of sitting back there like 7th in the pack, but all the guys that we have fit the mold, the scheme. And if you look at a picture of everybody that we signed this year, last year, this year, and then like going back to when Smith started, you can tell just like the size of the athlete has improved. It's just been a better version of the guys they still need to fit. Whereas before it was low 3 stars. Now it's high 3 stars and some 4s sprinkled in.
It reminds me of reading some SB Nation articles that what's the guy's name that does the analytics? He's moved on from there. I don't know where he is now. The big analytics guy that really does the advanced S&P Plus and all that business. But anyway, reading some articles about Oregon State when Jonathan Smith took over, and about how these were historically bad rosters, like vying for the worst roster in Power 5 football in the previous 25 years.
Yeah, no, it was. I could point to a few different positions that, like, you know, moving receivers to play corner, or, you know, that was back when Jack Coletto switched from quarterback to play linebacker because we needed linebackers. We didn't need a quarterback. And we see what he is now, Paul Hornung Award winner. I think he makes the NFL. We won't have another guy like him, but it's finally, you know, we're at a place now where like that is all behind us and it's all about what's next. But that's the story. And I think that that's the selling point. That's what's so cool is like we have 3 core coaches that we have to keep. Smith obviously being one, and the raises help. The salary pool helps. But Trent Bray, the defensive coordinator, on the defensive front, those changes have been the key. I mean, sure, we could have had a great offense, but you need to have a defense. And you know, Bray took over the job about halfway last year when we fired Tibesar, who came over from Wisconsin, who's now at Akron. I think that's familiar to the Ohio people. But yeah, so Trent Bray, we have to keep him around. He was a Beaver right after Smith in the early 2000s, and he has just provided so much energy. And, you know, he's kind of like the kind of like a landing, jump around, scream coach. We need that because that's not Smith, right? And then our offensive line coach, Mihalchek, we have to keep those 2 guys. Obviously, I'd love to keep everybody, but this core nucleus is going to get kind of picked apart a little bit more the more success we have, which is a good thing, but it's also going to be key. And Mihalchek, the offensive line coach, has the associate head coach tag, so I think he sticks around. And Bray was asked in an interview if he'd gotten looks at from head coach. He said he had talked to some different schools, but at this time he has no interest in being a head coach. He loves what's going on in Oregon State. He wants to see it through. They asked in the future if he wanted to be a head coach, and he was like, honestly, I don't know. I've always liked the coaching aspect, the day-to-day aspect, more than the political, the CEO role. So if we keep the coaching around, you know, players will come and go. But this program is built for success for like the foreseeable future.
Very cool, Connor. I'm happy for you. I'm glad for you. I'm looking at the rankings and I don't see a viable path to the top 10. But,
yeah, no, I
get your point. I'm just saying that even though they're sitting at 14, so you would think, well, if the bottom half of the top 10 loses, but almost all those teams are just going to stay in front of them.
Exactly. Like even
maybe
State, Utah loser will still stay ahead.
Maybe Kansas State, maybe, but they're playing Alabama. Maybe if they get killed, they drop. Maybe Clemson at 11-3, maybe, but they win a conference. Yeah, there's just not enough teams that are going to fall.
So maybe preseason top 10 then.
Maybe.
I don't know if the national narrative. Oh, one thing that helps that though, and then I'll get going. Kirk Herbstreit calling the game and seeing the Beavers up close and personal, and Pat McAfee, they had nothing but good stuff about the Beaver program. So now Herbstreit sitting on College Game Day, and the Beavers versus Arizona State pops up as the pick'em game. You know, that'll linger in the minds of a lot of the national media type guys, and so I'm not really worried about rankings. It's just
sure
people love it, and so to be relevant, you need to have a number next to your name, I guess. So we'll see, but you know the Pack will be fun next year. So back to Pack, and we're not done with football yet this year. I'm sitting here now. I'm chilling because we've won our game. We just get to enjoy the rest of the games. But
very cool.
Yeah,
Connor, we appreciate it. And once
Beaver
again,
and DJ.
Uyangalele.
Yeah, I won't try it now, but I'll say it next time I'm on here. I need to practice it in front of the mirror.
Connor, good to see you.
Good to see you, Mark.
Enjoy your holidays.
Yeah, you too.
All right. Connor getting the job done. It's great to talk to Connor. I feel good for him. I feel great for him. I make this statement every so often that, yes, we love you, Michigan fans. We love you, Ohio State fans. We love you, USC fans, Clemson fans, Alabama fans, Georgia fans. But you understand there's a zillion of you out there, and you're loud and you're proud, and you've got a lot of W's to lean back on and say, hey, shoot, we're only top 5 this year. What's wrong? Maybe I'm just talking to Ohio State fans when I say that, because my goodness. But, you know, the Purdue fans out there, the Oregon State fans out there, the Kansas State fans out there, I'm not even going to the bottom of the barrel. I'm going to some very respectable level football programs, but that don't get much national love that I love to hear from. And I love to know that there are college football fans out there that realistically know that their team is never going to vie for a national championship, and they still love the sport, and they still are just as passionate about their team and their players, and can enjoy an 8-4 season. I think that's phenomenal. And again, I'll speak to the fan base in particular that I'm thinking of. And I know this spills into other fan bases, that the Ohio State fan base isn't the only whiny, entitled fan base, but I guess maybe I hear a little bit more by certain connections that, you know, maybe to be grateful for an 8-4 season one time would be, of course, that wouldn't happen, but not to be grateful for an 11-1 season. Connor reminded me as well when he mentioned Kirk Cousins that one of my favorite Kirk Cousins comment ever was after his first start in the NFL. And it was a successful start. I don't remember the circumstances. I do remember that he played well and his team won. He must have been with the Redskins. His first game in the NFL, first start, plays well, wins the game. And he's asked that, you know, the usual first game questions. Were you scared? Were you nervous? Were you intimidated? How were you feeling? And he goes, I played in the Big Ten. This wasn't a big deal. Love that statement. As soon as I heard that, this is beautiful. That was his statement. I played in the Big Ten. This wasn't a big deal. It's great. All right, folks. Amazon link in the description section. I understand that most of you have finished up your Christmas shopping, so probably not shopping for any more Christmas items. But, you know, Christmas will be 3 days in the rearview mirror, and people will be thinking, oh, I got to go shopping again. And then, of course, there's all the returns, and there are all the smart people out there that get the deals after Christmas that say, family, we can wait. I don't personally know of anybody that does that, but I've heard of people that do that, and it's actually very smart. Hey, we can buy twice the stuff after Christmas. And so you grab the Amazon link in the description section of all the videos, and put it somewhere where you will remember it. I understand that's a lot to think about. Okay, you got to go get the Amazon link. Then you got to put it somewhere. So when you're shopping 3 days from now, you remember, oh, Mark, yeah, Amazon link. Let's get that, because you go and you're right into Amazon just like you would be otherwise. Same deal. You know, there's probably an issue, and somebody brought this up to me, and it was a good point, that I don't think about, because I'm not a big, I only surf the internet on my phone. I don't like purchase things. I don't do that on my phone. I use laptops a lot. I'm not like big on my phone because I hate typing, constant texting, and you have to type things in. I hate that because I'm constantly making mistakes, and it's just annoying for me to text. I hate to text people, and I find myself doing a lot of texting, but at a certain point, you know what I text a lot to people? Too much to text. They ask me questions. Mark, what about this? And they want to get into a conversation. Too much to text. You want me to explain it to you? Call. So I say that all because somebody brought to my attention, well, Mark, you got to consider a lot of people are on their phone shopping on Amazon. And I'm like, oh, yeah, don't know what to do about that. Guess there's probably some way around that. Tim, Merry Christmas to you and your family as well. I appreciate you. You're the best. You're amazing. Tim has been helping us with the graphics. So these guys are so amazing. And I could add many of you to the list, but I will mention in particular Tim, Tony, Rick, Will, One Scoop, John, Jordan was in the conversation, Ben, I think I got everyone, and Joey having a conversation about certain things regarding the channel the other day and just how we can make things better. These guys always come up with better suggestions than I can ever come up with. If there's one thing I've learned from being in charge of people for a long time where I worked, surround yourself with good people. Identify good people. I don't know everything. Don't even come close to knowing everything. Usually the people around you know more than you do and have better ideas. So even if you have the better idea, even if you have the way that it needs to be done, lead them to believe that they thought of it. But that's not the case in this situation. So they come up with the better ideas. And one was, hey, Mark, you don't have to be doing everything in regards to searching for all the comments, searching for the super chats while you're trying to talk and actually make sense. And then in addition, I like to have the banner to identify the callers. And so they are helping me with that tonight. So Tim, thank you for that. And yes, Merry Christmas to you and your family, Mark. Thank you. God bless all of you guys out there. Stay safe and enjoy the holidays. Absolutely, on all points. Stay safe. Enjoy the holidays. Embrace the people you love. Understand that there are a lot of things more important than just some petty things that go on. So certainly embrace, appreciate those people that are closest to you. Be patient. Give them some grace. We all have issues in our life. We all have bad days. If you extend a little grace, it'll come back to you. Usually, I believe that. It may take some time. May take some time to be noticed. May not be immediate. But if you extend yourself a little bit with a little patience, a little love, a little grace to people, it will come back to you. So that's in addition to eating better, exercising more and more effectively in the new year, being more spiritually minded in some things, and building a better business. Let's see, what else do I have on my list of to-do items here in the new year? It's a long laundry list, but we'll get to it. Tim, thank you so much for helping out tonight. Appreciate everybody in the chat. I don't know when the next time we will be here because, yeah, I've got the typical family obligations tomorrow, but at the same time, I do have some free time. I don't need to be away the entire time, but I don't know necessarily that I'll come on here or not. Mark, thank you so much for that. Antoine and others that are wishing myself and everybody else a Merry Christmas and a Happy Holidays, regardless of how you spend and celebrate the holiday season. And so we will be here. And next week, we've got a very busy week from a personal and professional standpoint here, but we will make it work and we will have plenty of coverage of all the bowl games. It's my favorite week of sports, pretty much. I do love the bowl games. I'm not going to be able to take in as many live as I would like, but I have more important things going on next week. But we will be here going full throttle as we always do, and we would love for you to be here as well. Right here at the Voice of College Football. We will see you next time. If I don't get a chance to talk to you in the meantime, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays. God bless.